Practicing different paces in training is probably the most important thing you can do. If every single day you're just getting out the door and running the same pace and saying, okay, I want to run as fast as I can, that's not really going to set you up for running your best day on race day. You really want to practice marathon-specific paces on marathon workout days, and easier paces and recovery runs, and maybe faster paces on your interval days. So touching on different paces is going to give you a better idea of what your effort level is at different paces, so that on race day you don't go out too fast because you know what too fast is, and you don't go out too slow because you don't know what marathon pace actually is. So the more you can practice the different paces in your workouts, the better chance you are to have a good day on race day.
My pacing philosophy for easy runs versus quality sessions versus long runs all differs. I think for quality sessions, there's usually an assigned pace I give each of my athletes. And again, that is different for every athlete depending on where they're at in their fitness and what their goals are. So of course we want to try to hit those paces, but of course there are days where, slightly off, whether that's too fast or too slow. So quality sessions are really the days where we're trying to nail a certain pace. But easy days, I really like to focus on telling my athletes to make sure you take your recovery days seriously and making sure you need to go as slow or as easy as you need to go. Whether that's, 6-minute pace or 15-minute pace, it doesn't matter. I think it's all about getting in the recovery you need to feel good for the next quality session or long run day.
And then for the long run, I really like to have an athlete do some marathon pace miles at the end of the long run. So I might have them start out at a more easy or moderate pace, so maybe a little bit quicker than your easy pace, but then really finish with some good, strong marathon pace miles at the end. And what that does is it really prepares you mentally and physically for that kind of grindiness feeling that you're gonna inevitably feel those last 6 to 8 miles of the marathon. And there's really no better way to mimic that than doing marathon paced miles at the end of your long run. So you may not have even run 26 miles before you get to the actual marathon, but by doing this, your body's gonna know what it feels like to push through that gritty and grindy feeling. So when you get to the actual race, you're prepared, you've done it before, you know what it feels like, and you can finish really strong on race day.
Another question I get from athletes is, how do I pace my runs? There's so many. We hear tempo runs and fartleks and VO2 max runs and long runs and fast finish long runs, marathon pace runs. And so every one of those runs has a purpose within the plan. And so when you're working with a coach and you're working with a plan, you should have those paces. So your marathon pace might be your goal marathon pace on the day. But if you're really trying to dial it in, you might look at, okay, what's the humidity like here? What's the terrain like? Do I have to change my paces based on that? And so, we can work backwards. Okay, if we're 12 weeks out and we think fitness is here, where do we want to get to the goal? And we'll determine that pace. But as a broad rule, your easy runs should be relatively easy. In another language, zone 1, zone 2 heart rates. Your tempo runs, that's a little bit more of the uptick, a little bit faster, thinking of, could I run this pace for an hour straight up? And then marathon pace, really, it's like what you're trying to run in the marathon. But the caveat I always say to athletes is if you live in a hilly terrain, that marathon pace might be different. Or if you're on the East Coast like I am and the humidity's through the roof, we really got to dial in those paces a little bit so the load's the same.